Now, मैं next announce करने वाला हूँ social entrepreneurship. Of course, first our moderator needs no introduction, Mr. Pradeep Udas on stage. And later on in the evening, Mr. Udas is going to sing a few lines for us. Mr. Udas, aajaiye, baith jaiye, Thai board member, very dear friend, respected dignitary, all rolled into one. Chairman, MD and CEO, Persistent Systems, builds a multi-crore business in cloud computing and analytics, a true technology visionary. Dr. Anand Deshpande has been recognized for his technology and business leadership as well as his contributions to public welfare. Give it up for Dr. Anand Deshpande. Roopa Purushothaman, Managing Director and Head of Research for Everstone Capital Advisors. Prior to joining Everstone, Roopa was with Goldman Sachs as VP and Global Economist. Can we have Roopa please on stage? Yeah, Roopa, you're very pretty, huh? Really, I wanted to tell you that. Mr. Udas, that's why you've been on her table all afternoon and morning, huh? Alright, next up. Mr. Faran, pettiwala, President, Enactus India, and sits on company's global leadership team, which directs the company's strategy, planning, and operations. Faran has been the managing director of Norfolk Group, Australia, prior to joining Enactus India. Mr. Faran, can I have you on stage, please? Hello! And Mr. Udas, please take over. And Roopa, you're very pretty, yeah?
You can go now.
You're so jealous of my bonding with Roopa, yeah?
Well, thank you for warming everybody up. Almost we're coming to the end of session. How are you guys enjoying so far the conference? We're coming to an end. Right?
Louder, yeah, come on. Yeah.
Good. So, when we were, then Paul and Naveen and I were kind of working on the program, we were thinking that, what type of topics we should have. We were saying disrupt or be disrupted. Now, you heard through all the sessions that, people think about disruption, transformation means technology, and it's not only about technology. You heard speakers talk about the way you think, doing things differently is something that stands apart an entrepreneur who succeeds eventually in the race, right? So we felt that we should have different type of companies who are in different type of verticals, different challenges, but there's also still some similarities in all of them. And social enterprises, if you look at it, many of you, know that throughout the world, there is this awareness is growing about social accountability. We had the New Companies Act, we're saying 2% of the profit of certain size corporations have to go for, social responsibility that corporates have. And there are people who have, who give up something they have and in a typical corporate world, very, very successful people. And it's always like, I always wondered, is that why do they do that? And again, we find that people come from all different reasoning, but eventually something to do, they want to contribute to society, and that's why we gathered, this very august gathering here. I think you say they introduced them, but I've known all of them very, very closely. So I don't want to have tendency to then keep talking about them. But so I will first start with Anand Deshpande, who runs a very successful company, who founded Persistent System, and again he had differentiated there. And he in software services, instead of just doing traditional, finance systems, or healthcare, etc. He targeted companies who build products, and he started like Microsoft, IBM, etc. And he said, you know, I'm going to serve them. And then in his new inning, he started this Diasara, which is basically creating employment for people and people who are like whether it's a beautician or somebody who's a car mechanic who want to start a business. How do they do it? Create templates for them. He's taken a very ambitious goal of having 250,000 new businesses he wants to create over a few years. 25,000. But if jobs-wise, you would probably end up creating that. And so he will talk about that. Then Roopa, who's here, Roopa Purushothaman, she was one of co-author for the BRIC report that a decade ago came out. And she then moved to India. She's the head of research at Everstone Capital. You know Dhanpal Javeri, who's the president, so they kind of work together. But she had a dream to build a school and really work for empowerment of women and created Avsara Leadership Academy, where the school is set up in Pune. She will talk about that. I'll let them give more of their background. And my friend Faran. Not Faran Akhtar, he's Faran Pettiwala. And he heads an organization called Enactus, which is again working with, I think you have some 1,700 colleges throughout the world, and like 150 plus in India, right? Who are working with the students in creating entrepreneurs out of students. And many of them, they have a competition where they do a lot of social kind of projects and creating employment in all remote parts of India, etc. So we will talk about that. So one of the things we think about is this. First thought I have is, what is it that motivates them? Why do you had a successful company, you made a lot of money, why did you decide to do this?
Hello. Yeah, so I started this non-profit or a Section 25 company about 2.5 years back. And it's called Deasara Foundation, so D-E-A-S-R-A. ASRA are the initials of the 4 family members, and D is from Deshpande, okay? So it's not very complicated in the name as such, but that's what it is. And the idea was to focus on something that would create, help people to be self-employed. So that's really the goal that we are focused on. And if you go to the website, you can see more about exactly what we are doing there. But I'm trying to focus on helping and templating what it takes to get small businesses to happen, meaning small in the sense like beauticians and photographers and things like that. Help them with loans to everything that they might need to get started. So that's really the motivation. And why did I do this? Well, yes, I've been running this company. I turned 50 and I've been running Persistent for 25 years. And I was looking for something next, and I said, okay, we made some money, we might as well use it to do something meaningful. So I sort of got inspired by what Bill Gates has done, and I said, hey, Bill and Melinda Gates, we create our own foundation like that. And if you look at his website, he says, focus on one big problem that you can't solve and put all your money on it. So that's what we decided to do, and I said, if I'm in India, the biggest problem to solve is to get people to have work and jobs. If they have their own jobs, then they can pay for medical, education, everything else. So really, that's really the focus. So everything I do right now, which is not persistent, is related to this. That's really what it is.
That's good. Roopa, Avsaraj, again, why did you do that? And maybe even if you can think about, because you've had almost like a startup situation, right? Like in any enterprise. You would have faced certain challenge, etc. So if you could cover that, first of all, what motivated you to do this, moving from US here?
Sure. I think as a researcher, as Pradeep mentioned, being an economist, the question that always I seem to be obsessed with from the time I was a teenager was, I guess, a simple question, why some countries are rich and others are poor. And that's what guided my whole career and led to writing the bricks. And I think once I moved to India and looked within India and started looking at the challenges India faces, whether you look at employment, health, safety and violence, when you tear apart any of those statistics, what you find is that the odds are overwhelmingly against girls or children of women who have babies before the age of 20. And so, I kept thinking, if you want to really address any of these individual issues, before you look at that, you really have to think about the mindset, about the value of girls. And I think that's where Apsara was born, when we wanted to say that if we could really create role models, homegrown examples of success stories within communities, that would do much more in one generation to change mindsets about the values of girls, rather than doing sort of just marginal changes to move from here to here. So we really aimed with the organization to take girls who really show a lot of potential and move them from here all the way to here, make them super successful, and have them be role models. I think in terms of challenges, there have been a number. We've been working on Apsara for a decade. I have to say, on one hand, it's been great. We've incubated it within Everstone. We've had so much support, which has been so difficult for many startups. But I think on the other hand, the thing that probably I would say there's different layers of challenges. The first challenge in terms of, or what we spend most of our time worrying about, was fundraising. But I would say that's probably been, once you get over the initial hump, that's been the least of our worries. I would say the middle sort of layer has been just not knowing what the game plan is going to be. How do you start a school in India? What are the permissions? What are the permissions to build in a local area? I'll just give you this is kind of too much information, but a very personal example. I'm 4 months pregnant, and I will look up on Google to say, is my baby okay? We're used to thinking that you can Google anything and find the answer. So I would Google, what are the permissions needed to start a school in Pune? And you don't find any of those things. There's no roadmap. So I think the biggest challenge is just jumping into something, not knowing what you're going to do. And the only thing is that you have the will to actually see it through. And I would say the most personal challenge has been that people think you're crazy. I think we started our school this past August, but I've been working on this and talking like a crazy woman for the past decade. And I think even the people that are closest to you start to lose faith. So you have to, again, it's a lot about personal will to really do something.
Thank you. Faran, what drove you to do this? And also maybe if you can talk a little bit, Roopa, later on, maybe I'll come back to you a little more about Apsara, where you are, what are you planning to do, etc. Faran, now that you have the mic.
So, thank you, Pradeep, for the introduction. As most of you know, I lead an organization called Enactus, which started back in 1975 in the US. It's an international non-profit. Most of you would know us by our previous name. We started as Students in Free Enterprise, which got abbreviated to the word SIFE. And in 2013, we decided globally to change the brand name to Enactus. That's because in different countries, so we are in 36 countries. And when you embark on a journey, yesterday I know somebody asked how important is brand name to Madhuri Dixit, and she said that's very important. So I can share, when we started in 1975 as SIFE, we never realized that when we go global, our brand name will have different meaning. So SIFE had a different meaning. In Swaziland, SIFE meant to die. And in Egypt, SIFE meant sword. So we had a big problem in India. People will pronounce us as Sifi. And we realized that it's not the way we want the organization. So the name changed to Enactus. And as Pradeep said, we're an international non-profit. Our model is we partner with more than 1,700 colleges and universities all over the world. And we empower more than 70,000 students every year to go through the Enactus program. Students form a team in the college, and they go and do projects which improve livelihood of people in a sustainable way. We want them to apply business and economic concepts in the real world. So we've partnered globally with United Nations and we support, I'm sure you know the new 17 SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. So Enactus as an organization supports and students do these projects to align with the 17 SDGs. And then we get business leaders to come and mentor and coach these students, as well as we have a competition, as Pradeep said, where he's been a judge. So luckily we have 400 large companies, including KPMG, supporting us globally. And KPMG has actually been supporting us for more than 35 years now. So I must say thanks to Pradeep and KPMG for doing that. But yeah, in India, for example, we have Tata supporting us. Yesterday I met my mentor, Mr. Ratan Tata. We have Mahindra supporting us. And every other organization looks at Enactus for three things. One is clearly the talent that they recruit through the Enactus pool. Second is the CSR activity that the students, all the projects the students do are CSR projects. And of course, the third thing is every organization needs employee engagement. So a lot of these colleges need mentoring, coaching, and the organizations do that in a meaningful way.
Thanks. So, round of applause for both. And Faran ran a very successful enterprise in US, I think some $700–800 million. What made you decide to come to India and
I'm one of those cranky parties, as people call me. My wife still is trying to figure out why I came back in 5 years. As Pradeep said, I was heading a company called United Technologies Corporation, managing a business called Carrier Air Conditioning. And then I managed an $800 million company in Australia. I also was an entrepreneur, by the way. I used to run a startup 20 years ago. Grew that company from zero to a 500 crore size and then went through an M&A. So I had no exit plans, as Ronnie said. And you never build a business with an exit, but when you come across a joint venture and then you make your exit, then you start wondering what next in life. And as Anand said, it was really about giving back to the next generation. I was looking for a platform and I couldn't see a platform better than Enactus, especially given that Enactus has been doing this for the last 40 years. And in India we've grown. We have 150 colleges now with more than 5,000 students who are actively involved in Enactus projects. Many of them are sitting here. So I'm sure you can get testimonies as to how their whole personalities change. And when I see that, somewhere I see myself in them. Probably 30 years ago when I was graduating from college, we never had a platform like Enactus to give back. And probably that is the reason why I chose to come here, because I felt that students must get a platform to showcase their entrepreneurial capabilities while they're still studying. And that is exactly what motivated me to take this role.
Thanks. So, thank you very much, Roopa. Similarly, you just started school in Pune, the flagship school, but for the last several years, 4 years, been running programs for Avsara, and so if you can talk about what impact you've seen in the girls.
Sure. I think that's the reason that we get up every day. We've worked with about 1,000 girls. We focus on adolescents, so girls typically from 6th or 7th standard through 12th standard. And what we've seen is that if you put motivated kids in front of really good teachers, and it's not teaching the content, but having teachers that really push the kids to think that their boundaries are much further up than they think that they are. You just see magic happening. So, we've seen 3 years of improvement in writing skills in the course of 3 months. Our kids have started leadership projects. There's an example of a library that our girls started. We have a curriculum called Leadership, Entrepreneurship, and Indian Studies. And in that curriculum, the girls themselves have to start a leadership project. And so a group decided to raise funds on Kickstarter. They ended up raising $5,000 to build a library in Dharavi that had over 5,000 visitors. And I think more than the numbers, the biggest thing that came out of that is that from the beginning, the girls said, well, we're 14-year-old girls, what can we do to change our community? And by the end of that project, they started saying, how are we going to expand? How do we think of recruiting other kids to man the library? They were thinking like entrepreneurs. And I think having that little example of success just breeds in them the idea that they can do a lot more later on in life.
Yeah, and that's really, I mean, I've seen, I met the girls who kind of, they were so excited, I mean, to learn. For them, from the background that they've been exposed to before that, and to think about crowdfunding and raising $5,000, I mean, they had like, the stars in their eyes, and they did a fantastic job. I mean, I remember going to one of the, low one of those low-income schools somewhere in Khar, and I'd gone on behalf of KPMG, and we had kind of given them some money for solar panels, and I just talked about Avsara. So principal said we have 14 girls from Avsara who went to this after-school program, and please get up. So all the girls, they go, and then she was saying that these girls have become so confident, many times the teachers don't show up in classes, in those schools, and they actually teach classes. They will get up on the chair and conduct the classes. So this is the kind of effect in creating leaders. So I think your whole model, the way I understood it, is creates leaders who would help their community. Multiplier effect, that's been very, very impressive. Anand, you talked about persistent. I've known you for many years. Even there, you talk very differently. And now with the Asara, what is it that you learned from your persistent experience, which is helping you with this?
Right. So clearly, one of these things when you are doing your job daily. You have these weekends where you are just gossiping, figuring out, we should do something different and all that. And in that context, job creation has been something that we've been talking for about 10 years with friends and family and other people. But what we found, and we met a lot of people, we find that there are many people who are trying to do skill development. There are a lot of people who have pilots on all of these things, but somehow this problem is so large that doing a small number of these is not really enough for us. So the idea was that, and the reason we picked this target of, say, 25,000 businesses was that if I keep the number large enough, there is no way you can meet every single business to get this started. So you need to do it like an IT company does, which is to follow a certain process, create templates, and push it through. Right? So this is what we decided to do. So the idea was that we took 25,000, we said, okay, if we have to do 25,000, let's go after the most common ones. We've identified 250 different kinds of businesses. We said if we find a business such that at least 100 of those can happen in Pune, that's our criteria, and you can of course do many of these across all parts of India. So we are picking those 250 different kinds of businesses and completely figuring out everything that you need to know about those businesses. So we don't come to, when we go to a college which is doing skill development, let's say in, so there are lots of these colleges. We have partnerships, about 20 of them in Pune. So these colleges teach people how to be beauticians, photographers, whatever else, but then they don't tell you what else to do after that. But what we do is, if somebody is a photographer, then we have everything that they might need to run a photography business. How do you set up the thing? What bank do you need? What loan do you need? What paperwork you have to have? What permissions you need? What is the model at which every employee that you have will make at least 25,000 rupees or whatever else? So I have hired chartered accountants, lawyers, and a bunch of old people around that who actually have studied these different businesses in great detail. And we have templated them out quite extensively. So for every business, I have 132 points. I go fill I don't do any of this stuff. I just fund it. I have people who go fill in these 132 point spreadsheet, go run it with 8-10 companies of that kind, get a chartered accountant, fill the thing. And then we have technology that actually delivers this specifically to the individuals at the in-point size solutions as you want it. So it's really, trying to make it so that it can be scalable and it can be built at scale. That's really the focus that I have right now. And the idea was that if we have to have give you the magnitude of the problem. We have a 1.3 billion population. Half of this is below 25, so 625 million people below the age of 25. Each age there are 25 million people. Our job requirement per month is a million jobs every month, and total of 12 million jobs, 1.2 crores every year. This is minimum. And if you don't have these jobs for people, what will people do? They are getting trained, they are getting aspirational, and if they don't have work to do, it's not good because they'll do all kinds of things they shouldn't be doing. And this is not possible for them to just, every business make in India has to be more and more efficient. So you can't just ask people to just hire for the sake of hiring. People have to create self-employment jobs. The services sector, self-employed people is really the only way we can solve our problems. And I think this is a growing, happening thing, and that's sort of where I thought there's no point in everyone trying to reinvent how a photographer or a beauty salon or a creche should run. Let's just template it, make it easy, and let them follow compliance, process, technology, IT, everything that they might need in a box. That's really what the
You've also got an app or something.
Yeah, so it's got, there are things that allow you to do the technology, so you can run your business on a mobile phone, and everything that you might need in this whole context is all being built out. So the app has not been released, but if you go to the website, it's called www.deasra.in. You should be able to see a lot of things there, and would love to get comments from you. Again, this is not something I understand well, but I'm learning as we go along. Been working on it for about 2.5 years, and then every time you meet new people, you learn new things, and we incorporate it back. The fact is, we have templated it, it's all scripted, so to incorporate new changes is not very difficult for us at this point.
Okay, thanks. Many times, like many of you in entrepreneur journey, you feel you're not getting anywhere. It must be really times when you feel low and say, is it going to go anywhere? And if you're running a social enterprise, in my view, challenges are sometimes even seem even more insurmountable, right? So I just want to ask, what do you, how do you deal with that when you run across something like that? What is it that, I know you said earlier that it's a will, but any other advice?
When it seems like
all
hope is lost. As I said before, this has been a decade-long journey, and there have been many points. Pradeep is being really humble. He's been part of this whole journey for the last 10 years. And so I think we were speaking last night, and he was saying that there were times that I didn't know if this would actually be successful, but I didn't want to tell you. And I said, there were times that I thought this wasn't going to happen, and I didn't want to tell you. So I think part of it is building those networks around you and your project. Because there's always going to be these ups and downs that everyone goes through, but not at the same time, and that's an advantage. And I would say, for me, it's not that I ever set out to be I'm not one of those people who says I'm an entrepreneur by nature. I would be happy sitting and doing research all day in a back room. But I think that the fact that I felt so strongly that there was this need and this gap, and the fact that I felt like I knew how to pull the resources in to address it, meant that was too exciting not to keep trying to do it. I don't know how else to explain it, but it was like I couldn't wake up in the morning and not do it and not spend my time on it. And I think that's what saw it through eventually.
I think it's seeing those girls and smile in their face, and their parents, I think, drives you. Same way, right? Even seeing the effect it has, the impact it's creating it.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Anand said, a big chunk of our, I've always said this in many platforms that we have 25 million engineers coming out every year and 1 million jobs. The question is, on one side, when you talk to organizations, they say we don't get talent. And on the other side, we have such a huge workforce coming, So somewhere we have to introspect as a country as to why is it that the industry is saying that they're not getting talent. And I think that's where Enactus comes in as a wonderful plug-in, which is why companies like KPMG, Tatas and Mahindras and 400 large companies support us. Because what it really does is it gives the student, number one, an opportunity to work as a team, which is, unlike a peer team, this is a cross-functional team where they work. And two, when they go and do these projects, they fail. I've been an entrepreneur, Pradeep. I've failed 15 years, literally every day. And even when I built the 500 crore organization, my wife would say, you have failed. So I think failure is fine. And I think that's something we need to bring. I know Ronnie talked about it this morning, that it's and to a large extent, Enactus is preparing students that it's okay to fail. When you go and do your venture, I did 7 ventures before I actually embarked on my real venture. And never have I spoken about the first 6 that I failed. Only when I probably applied to Harvard Business School, they asked me about my failures more than my successes. But I think that's something we need to build.
This is something that's been talked about recently and written about recently. I'm going to sound a little bit like a self-help book, but this is mostly for the students in the audience. But I think when you talk about what you want to do as an entrepreneur, it's not so much about what do I love to do, but it really is what will I suffer through to accomplish, because every day you wake up and there's so many different challenges that you're facing on the ground, with villages, with regulation, whatever it might be. And so it's not that it's this wonderful thing or you hit a point at which you feel success, but it is that you want to go through all of that because there is something. For us, it was this idea that, it's so exciting that there's talent and it's not distributed by demographics or by your gender or by your income level, but yet opportunity is distributed by that. So how can we match that? That's exciting enough to be able to deal with, all the issues that you have to do to pull this through. And I think that's what has to keep you going.
Thank you. We have a few minutes for questions, and I think this is a very emotional subject, so I would like to really continue, but if some of you might be even thinking about social enterprise, so let's see, we'll prioritize. Any questions? You think of starting a social enterprise? Okay, go ahead.
To review my own success story of my life, I want to opinion from you that if startup has a social positive approach to this idea, there is a 100% chance to success.
You mean to say, it's like any other enterprise, right?
Yeah, as you say, because many, we see internationals, many organizations who has a social approach like WhatsApp, Facebook. This is how we success. So, many startups are starting, but sometimes they have a money value. But if something has a positive social value, actually, it's not that we have to. But even that develop technology, but the approach not earning money, but helping to the society or helping to the human beings. If they keep approach that means that kind of social approach, then because as I see my own study that my own success story to be energy will help you actually. All this.
If you're saying, well, if you're doing good thing, eventually. The universe will it's true, but the key is, I'm sorry, maybe one of you should answer this, but I feel, it's really, you have to have the drive to continue. We'll take.
Hi, I have to tell you about myself first, I hate to do that. So to ask my question, I run a delivery company and I have about 100 plus people working for me. So my question to you is, sir, if I spend a lot of time training my boys of how to behave and how to be presentable in terms of a client, because we're a delivery company and I want my guys to be presentable. So can I send my guys to your institute for training and can they be trained? Like just a basic training?
No, so I'm not doing training.
Okay.
But I would enable training institutes to run those kinds of trainings.
Okay.
I'm not doing training. But if your delivery boys decided that they want to be entrepreneurs, I can help them be entrepreneurs.
So I have an entrepreneurship story between my boys. So one
No,
of
no,
these
right. So
days-
those are ones we can work with. So we've had people who do housekeeping in our office say they want to do a house cleaning job on their own. So they get together and run the house. So if you want to run a house cleaning business, what do you need to have? Oh, you need to have shop act, you need to have this, that. They get so foxed trying to follow this thing. They can go to our website, go end to end. They need 3 lakh rupee loan, we'll get them a 3 lakh rupee loan. They can go get the paperwork, they will be 100% compliant, and they can run their own businesses. We don't do training.
That's okay. So one question, sorry, to Roopa. I'm sorry. So Roopa, I've been trying to set up a team of women who could do errands for people here, because that's the only thing missing in my business, and I've been trying hard to get people to run errands. I placed an ad in newspapers. There will be 3 girls showed up in entire Bombay to apply for the job. So is there a way I can connect with your organization to see if there's something I can connect? Come and present and see if we could build something.
Why
These
do
are
you want
not
women
studies.
to do?
But the opposite.
Let me provoke you
After
a
that.
bit. Why do you need women to do the errands? Why can't men do the errands?
I think women can also run errands. It has nothing to do with gender.
Why do you need to advertise that you need women for doing the errands?
Because that's what I want to start. That's my thought process to work out something.
Why errands and women? That's
Because
a flawed
60% of my audience are women that I work with, and I think
Okay.
creating a team like that would be
Okay,
good.
but I think she's got a school.
Yeah, that's what I understood. It's a
School,
school,
yeah.
So yeah, I think we work with younger kids, but I think one of the things that you should try to think about is, what I found is that if you go back 10 years ago when I moved to India, there would be a lot of obstacles just about women doing certain things.
Yeah.
Fast forward to today, and there is an immense amount of change. Now it is, we're open to, largely, we're open to our daughters or our mothers or whatever it might be, or ourselves doing these things, but there are a huge amount of obstacles, safety to get to work. So there might be other things that you need to solve for to make it something that is doable. So if it is something that you are driven to do and it's a market that makes sense for you, it might be worth it to try to understand those underlying issues.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah,
Thanks.
All right, there's the lady there, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Meenakshi, and first, an answer to your question, both your problems can be solved from my company. We do training and we supply people.
Now listen, shout out your mobile number, man.
I'll give him the card. I run a platform called helperforyou.in, which is enabling people to hire from the bottom of the pyramid like you would hire from Naukri.com. And we do training.
Ma'am, if you want a visiting card, we can send it through this boy there.
I do. My question is to Roopa. So see, what we are trying to do is, we have realized that we just don't want people to be on the platform for others to hire them. We also want to make them, skill them up. So we have been trying to run some training for people in the slum areas. But the challenge is that anything that does not pay for them, even if it is free training, women, men, no one turns up for the training. So how do you get around that? Because you are running a school and you would have girls after school. Do you pay them? How do you incentivize them?
We don't pay them. Actually, the parents, so we charge a nominal fee, about 100 rupees a month, just to make sure that the families are committed to sending their girls over time. But I think what you need to do is to make it clear what the outcome will be. When there are clear ideas of labor market outcomes, then the incentive for being able to go through the training becomes much easier. There's been tons of studies on how that's been done. So I'm not saying that it hasn't been done, but there might be a different way of communicating what that would translate into, what the wages would be very clear about what that goes into, and then people can invest the time. And again, there might be something else in terms of time, opportunity cost that might be solvable to get them to come. But I think when you say that there is labor market opportunities, particularly in India, you see time and time again that people do invest in their training.
Right. So people keep telling me that because you are offering it free, that is why it doesn't excite them. Would that be true to some extent?
It could be, and it could be that you want to charge something, again, not audacious, but something minimal to make sure that you get commitment. Because I think what I found is that in a lot of communities, there's just a huge amount of distrust because so many organizations have come through and they say that they're going to train and provide some certificate at the end of the day, but they haven't really, no one's moved and you've just wasted time. So you have to get over that hurdle of just lack of credibility and logical resistance because so many people have done this before and not done it well. So I think you have to prove, and you just have to get that first batch in and really show that they go through that training, and it could be 5, but that they do get some skills and it does translate into some job opportunity.
Right, thank you.
Thank you so much. And Roopa, I want to be a student in your school, yeah?
I think we should close this program, right?
Possessive. Very possessive you're getting. All right, one more question, quickly, last one. Okay, this gentleman in the first row, he showed me his hand first, sir. How are you, sir?
Right. So there are social enterprises for not-for-profit, and there are social enterprises for profit, very clearly. So there are many in between who are not sure where they are. How do you draw that line? Because many times, I was recently in Gujarat, road trip, and I saw every shop I stopped, every showroom I stopped at Crafted, and all of them said, we are an NGO, we get work done from the villagers, and we sell it here. So I was asking them the question, how do you make sure that the villagers are getting the right thing, what they get? They were not able to answer. So how does one draw that line in between?
I mean, I think it's a tough line, and I think this whole idea, because the spectrum has moved from NGOs and philanthropy all the way to, like you were saying, impact investing. There's a whole other set of things, and then it's become this opportunity for people to be able to scheme around it too, and that happens, I think, across the board. I think that you can, again, you have to vet each business as it comes along, but I think that there are a lot of people that take advantage of NGO status, particularly in terms of taxes, and then really be able to skim off the top. But I do think that things, at least in the NGO and the nonprofit company world, I do feel like in the last few years, you do see a lot of change in terms of at least governance levels or some kind of, compared to before where it was like Wild West, it does seem like there are some standards, at least in that sector. I can't speak to the business and the impact investment space.
I'll just give you like a minute answer. I've been in the for-profit world for 2 decades. Now I'm in the non-profit for 5 years. My take is, there's not much difference between the for-profit and non-profit. In the for-profit world, I had shareholders because I was running an $800 million listed company. So the reporting to the shareholders will be so many dollars revenue, so many dollars EBIT, and so on and so forth. In the non-profit world, I don't have shareholders to report, number one. Number two, my KPIs are how many students' lives have been touched, how many million people have we impacted. Like I was telling Pradeep, 2 million people on this planet, every year their lives improve because of some Enactus project somewhere in some part of the world. When I go to sleep in the night, I get sound sleep saying somebody's life somewhere is being improved because of Enactus. And I think that to me is a different, adrenaline than what I would have when I would say I'm running a $1 billion company, I'm listing on so-and-so, and So I think that's long story short.
All right, I think we're done. Round of applause for each one on the stage, and can we have those small mementos, please? I request Mr. Das to give it to Anand sir, to Faran, and I will give it to Roopa. Thank you. Thanks, sir. Thank you. To each one of you, Mr. Das, a big hug to you, man. You're a superb guy. Thank you so much. Everybody, give it up for them. This is probably one of the last few sessions we're having. Thank you, Faran. And thank you for mentioning about your wife, because you've been behaving like a bachelor since yesterday morning.
I'm competing with you. Making an effort to compete with you.
You compete with me? No, sir. No one can compete with you. You're a living legend, sir.
We've had a living legend, Mr. Tata, yes.
Yes, of course. All right.